So you started your fusing journey and you're well on your way to becoming a fusing fanatic, but you don't yet have a kiln. This is very normal. They're very expensive, and you also need to find a location to put them in that's both safe and easily wired into your electricity supply. Many people start their fusing journeys and use kilns available in lots of studios all over the place. I know 𝐓𝐡𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐢𝐳 have a resource sharing kilns, so that's definitely a way you can start. But I definitely know once you really get obsessed with the glassy magic, you're gonna wanna own your own kiln. And so let's talk about getting your own kiln. Where you're gonna put your kiln will help you decide on the size you can put, but also you have to consider money. The larger the kiln, the more expensive it is. You could even start with something as small as a microwave kiln. These can go in a domesticated microwave, not the one you're gonna use for your food, however. You wanna use a separate microwave, and create small projects about the size of this area here. It just goes in the kiln and you heat it up, but they don't have very much control. We're going to talk about microwave kilns in a bigger video later on. For myself, you can start on a small kiln and it fits somewhere easily, and you can make lovely pieces of jewellery and small dishes, but you may soon outgrow it. So if you have the space and can afford it, I would always try and go a little bit bigger right from the start. So one of the first considerations you need to think about is where you're going to put it. You want it somewhere safe. Although you think kilns go to very high temperatures, they're unlikely to set anything on fire unless you do something very stupid. You can even leave paper on top throughout the firing process, and it may go a bit brown, but it shouldn't ever catch on fire if your kiln is a good, safe model. But you still want to think where you're going to put it, how you're going to wire it in, and how much space you have for your kiln. Kilns come in three main designs. Top loaders, lid lifts up, great for visibility. Front loaders, like an oven door, great for checking out drop vessels. Clamshells, these swing open like a book, giving brilliant access to your kiln shelf. They all work well. It just depends on the space you need and the projects you want to do. All kilns have heating elements in them. There are two main types I'm going to talk about here. Open coils, you can see them in their kiln. They're like a piece of metal looking like a spring that go in channels in your kiln bricks. They can sag over time and little bits of glass can get stuck to them, but they work really well and are very common in most kilns. You can also have quartz tubes elements. These are where the heating bits are inside a quartz tube and they look milky and white. They work really brilliantly. 𝐚𝐴 use them a lot in their kilns, but if you touch them with your fingers, the oils in your fingers can deteriorate the quartz elements. So when installing them or touching them, you always want to wear gloves. The shapes of a kiln is also important. They come in lots of different shapes. You've got square, rectangle, round, oval, bathtub. Depending on what you find, that will be your kiln shape. For me, I use kiln paper to protect my kiln shelves from the glass. It's a resist method. You need to put something on your kiln shelf so the glass doesn't stick, and my preferred method is kiln paper. Because of that, I like a square or rectangular, because then I can cut the paper without any wastage. If you have a circle one, you've always got the edges, but you can't use them very much except for small projects afterwards. So that's also a consideration. However, if you're going to use kiln wash, it really doesn't matter. But I always feel I get better use out of a square or a rectangular kiln. Thinking about buying a kiln, you could also look at second hand. There are lots of places like on Facebook groups and on eBay that you can buy second hand kilns. Two of my kilns are second hand and they work brilliantly, but you have to check them out. Look at the bricks, are they deteriorating? Look at the elements, are they okay? See whether they'll let you turn it on and make sure all the elements are heating up. When you buy a second hand kiln and get it home, definitely do a test fire. 𝐓𝐡𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐢𝐳 have a brilliant testing cold spots in your kiln tip sheet. We'll put a link to it in the comments that will show you where your kiln fires and where fires hotter and colder. I've had a kiln that was working, but actually one of the elements was completely broken and had a massive cold spot at the front, and it took me quite a while to realise, oh, one of my elements isn't working. So it's always worth checking it out. Kilns do need servicing and maintenance. Elements wear out, thermocouples break. There is a multitude of things that can go wrong with them. Through the joys of YouTube, I've learned how to service most of my kilns, and I can do most of it myself in-house. But if that isn't for you, make sure maybe where you're buying your kiln from, they'll come out and help if there's an issue, or at least give you advice over the phone. So it's definitely worth working out where your kiln can be serviced. So that's it. Think about where you're going to put it, what size you want, what your budget is. Do you want second hand? What kind of shape and loading method you want. All of those things are worth looking at when getting your kiln, but don't be afraid. You need to dive in, and when you get your kiln, just go ahead and try and fire it. I know it's the scariest thing in the world, programming your kiln, and we will look at controllers and how to program it in another video, and I've got a fantastic guest appearance talking about firing schedules coming up fairly soon, so check that out. But until next time, happy fusing.